The premise is to lure you in, fatten you up, and then slaughter you.
Montgomery County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Welcome to Voices of Service. I am Cassandra Tressler, and this is Assistant Chief Darren Frank. On this week's episode, we are joined by 29-year veteran officer, Detective Lisa Bromley of our Financial Crimes Unit to talk about some of the most prevalent types of frauds and scams currently affecting our community. We will discuss warning signs and practical tips to protect you from falling victim to these schemes and shed light on the tireless efforts of detectives to bring these fraudsters to justice. So get ready for an eye-opening journey into a world of fraud, greed, and deception.
Montgomery County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Lisa, thank you for being here with us today. This is scary stuff.
It can be, yes. People have lost their life savings over financial crimes. Yes, it's very scary.
What's life savings?
Like their entire retirement fund.
100,000, 200,000,
Millions.
millions
Yes.
from these scams.
Yes, I recently had a victim that lost $2 million. Wow. Yes.
Well, that's a lot of money,
It is a lot of money.
a lot of heartache.
I've had people unfortunately cry at just devastated over this. Yes, it's life altering for sure.
And this is across the board, right? It's not just the young, the elderly, it is anybody can fall
Correct.
victim to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what are some of the most common types of fraud that we're seeing in our community?
So right now we are seeing quite a bit of mail theft.
Okay.
So something to be aware of when you mail checks outgoing, whether outgoing or incoming. People look for these checks. They're very lucrative. You can use the information that's on the checks, such as the account number and the routing number, and create a new check with that information. So you would basically be counterfeiting that check, or you could alter the check. You can take the information, who the pay to is, and put a new person or a company on there.
So now, I, of course, have seen your presentations before, right?
Yes.
So I've seen your presentations before, and I got to tell you, well, it caused a fight. Caused a fight.
Uh-oh.
Because I saw that one of the ways they get this stuff is when you put your stuff in the mailbox and you put your little flag up.
Correct.
And my wife, that's how she mailed things, because she didn't want to go up to the post office in Damascus. She'd take it out to the mailbox, throw up the flag, and I came home and said, "You can't do that anymore."
Correct.
Why can't I do that anymore?
Because that little red flag is saying, here I am, there's mail in here. So if somebody's out looking to steal mail, that red flag will show there's mail in there that needs to go out. So keep the flag down, or actually physically drive to the post office, physically get out of your vehicle and deposit the mail into the slip inside the post office.
When you say inside, do not put it in the blue mailboxes, or
So
are
the
those safe?
blue bins, they are vulnerable to theft. So it's just something, an extra step to take where you actually are taking it into a manned facility.
So one of the things that a lot of people don't know is we have had, in Montgomery County and around the DMV, we have had robberies of postal workers, specifically for the keys
Correct.
to those blue bins.
Yes.
And those are all, like you can't possibly put a different lock on every single bin.
Correct.
Right. So it's a skeleton key, and you just, once they get that, they have access to all kinds of stuff.
Yes, unfortunately they do. So this is just an extra step to take to avoid your check getting lost or stolen in the mail.
So go into that facility.
Absolutely.
To actually put that in.
Now, I did tell my wife that too,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure it was a marital discussion. There was no fight. She said, "Well, Lisa said to do that." She said, "Okay, then I'll do it then."
Well, I'm glad that my
This is
advice
29
works.
years, 29. We didn't even cover this yet. 29 years in the department.
Yes.
How long you been doing your current gig?
So I've been in the financial crimes office for 10 years now.
Wow. Okay.
So it's been very interesting being there for 10 years because I've kind of seen an evolution of financial crimes. It's gone from cloned credit cards, counterfeit money, to now a lot of stuff's on the internet. And so there's a ton of internet crimes that happen that unfortunately we see a lot of money being stolen that way.
So really quick, just to backtrack, how did you end up in this unit?
So when I worked in the Germantown district, I was fortunate enough to be able to investigate with the detective's office there, theft from autos.
Okay.
And unfortunately, a lot of people leave their wallets and purses in their cars, and those items do get stolen. And the thief now has access to your banking information. They have your checks, they have your identification. If you leave that stuff in the car, and they use it, so they go on a shopping spree. So my theft from auto cases would actually turn into financial crime cases, and I was able to solve quite a bit of it just by investigating the financial crimes aspect of it. So I'd done that for a couple of years, and an opening came up in the financial crimes office, and I put in and got it, and it's been great. It's amazing the type of crimes that are out there. It's just flabbergasting how intelligent these criminals are, and how lucrative it is. I mean, people really can lose a lot of money in a very quick, short period of time.
Yeah.
Right. And the challenge, and I know you've closed a bunch of cases, but the reality is there are so many cases. Like closing cases, that's actually more rare than people think.
It is, unfortunately, and that kind of goes back to the internet, since a lot of times these scammers are sitting in another country. They're not even here locally. So it's very difficult for a local police department to actually get the person behind the keystrokes of some of these crimes.
Right.
So they're very difficult to solve.
Right. So I know, and again, I know you focus on prevention. We focus on prevention because
Yes.
that's probably our best tactic.
Education is key
Yeah.
for this. It really is.
And again, for me, I've never been in the financial world. I actually just, of investigations, but I just went to a conference.
Yes.
And I was excited that this is why we're talking to you today.
Right.
Well, first of all, because Cassandra's smarter than me and knows that this is the time of year for all these things. But
Yeah.
I went to a conference, and I had to step out in the hallway to take a call, and I come back in, and the person on the stage goes, "So we're going to talk about pig butchering."
Oh, pig
And
butchering.
And I said, "I'm sorry, hold on." I had to catch myself for a second and get caught up with this pig butchering thing, but it's fascinating. This is a terrible new trend.
It is, and back again, it's a lot of people lose a lot of money very quickly. So it sounds terrible. I'm with you. When I first heard it, I was like, oh, I have to look it up, but I was afraid what I was going to see when I
Tell us
did
what
an
it is,
internet
because the
search.
name is.
So it's basically, it's a scam, and the premise is to lure you in, fatten you up, and then slaughter you. So it's a type of scam, and it usually starts on a random text message that you might receive from an unknown number. You have no idea.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get them too. And it will basically say something to the effect like, "Hey, Ted, I'll see you at 2 for coffee." And when you see that message, you're like, I'm not Ted. So you'll respond and say, you have the wrong number. And the scammer on the other end will try to develop a rapport with you. And they'll be like, oh, hey, I'm sorry, wrong number, new phone, or whatever they say. And they'll try to befriend this person that they've never met. So unfortunately, sometimes people do fall for it, and they'll continue this communication, and they'll build this rapport, and it lasts days, weeks, months. And once they get them lured in and comfortable with them, they will talk about investing and money making, and then they'll talk about this great opportunity if they want to invest in as well. These people get sucked into this, and they see they want to make money, and they hear all these great things, and next thing you know, they're buying Bitcoin, and they're giving thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in these scams.
So now when we spoke about it the other day, you said that there will actually be a place where they can go to see
Yes.
or track their money.
These scammers are good. They've developed and created these websites that actually look like legitimate Bitcoin businesses, and they're completely fake. They will see their money going up, going down, or they believe they see their money on the screen, so it continues the scam. And they will invest more and more and more until they want their money back. And that's when they realize, oh my goodness, this is not real.
It's terrifying because, we think, okay, if I see it, I'll believe it. But
Right.
in that circumstance, you're seeing it, but don't believe it.
Correct.
And the other, and people don't understand, this is organized crime.
It
Like
is.
if the presentation I saw, they have literally a compound where people are enslaved to do this work. To all they do is text all day to try and they're fishing, right?
Right.
Another scam. They're fishing until they can hook someone and again fatten them up, butcher them, and I think the thing that came through to me is it's like an old saying: if it's too good to be true,
Yes.
it's too good to be true.
That's
Especially if it started with a text on your phone.
exactly. And that is my saying as well. That holds true for a lot of these crimes. It just people, if they would stop, wait, think before you give your money away, and never, ever, ever, ever give your money to someone you do not know.
Right.
Don't be afraid to consult. You can call us, you can call your friends, you can do an internet search. There's a lot of information out there at your fingertips that you just have to go get it.
Right.
You have to look, and you've got to stop and think. These
Slow down.
scammers, exactly, their scammers are great about the urgency on things. And that's how people get kind of sucked into it, where they make them feel like they don't have that time to think. And they just act and do things. And that's where a lot of people get in trouble and lose money.
That's terrible. Now, you were talking about identity. You were talking about mail theft. I apologize. Mail theft leads to other things.
It does. It leads to a lot of different things. So one thing I did want to touch on that we do see is it's called card cracking. And that's where college-age kids get recruited. And there's, if you ever seen on social media, there's like an advertisement. It's kind of like, hey, free money. All you need is a bank account.
Yeah.
And what they do is they'll look for these younger people, especially if they're not making any money or they're not working yet and they're in school. So they'll basically ask them for their ATM card and their PIN card. Yeah. And what they'll do is they will take some of these stolen checks, and they will, once they get the ATM card, they'll deposit it into now it's going to be a new victim, basically, the account holder's bank account. They'll deposit the money in there. The money will show that it's in the account, even though the checks haven't cleared. And then they will withdraw the money. And then once the checks come back as not good, then usually the account holder is held responsible for the negative balance. So a lot of times these kids end up becoming victims themselves from these stolen checks. And if there's an overdraft account, which is a lot of times the parents have, or the overdraft account, the parents will actually lose the money. Now, the problem is that when you open an account and you get an ATM card, they tell you do not give out your PIN number. So the kids are told to report that their ATM cards are stolen.
Right.
And when they do that, then the bank's like, well, how did they get to your ATM card, your PIN number? And they cannot explain it. So when that happens, the banks usually don't cover it, and then it's going to be the account holder is going to fall victim to that one.
Wow, that's an important distinction, because a lot of people think about the credit card theft, right?
Yes.
Normally, you call a credit card and say, hey, these are unauthorized, and fill out an affidavit. But on the PIN number, I didn't even think of that. Now I got to go have a talk with my daughters.
Yes.
So that they know better.
Yes, for sure. You never, ever, ever give your ATM card to anyone. I don't care what they tell you. Do not give your information out. It's gonna involve a scam, and I've seen, unfortunately, quite a few families that have got hung up in this. And the kids, they lie. They'll lie to us because they're afraid to get in trouble.
They're embarrassed. Yeah.
They're embarrassed. They're afraid to
They're
get.
smart kids. They're at college. They're doing whatever. They
Yeah.
would think, I'm sure parents was like, come on, man,
Yeah. Exactly.
The one of the last things we wanted to talk about with you is I actually dealt with this like 2 months ago. I got a call. I got a call from a friend, and they said my daughter opened up this on her computer, and this pop-up came.
Yes.
And it says, I want to say it said something to the effect of, if you turn your computer off, you close your browser, we're going to lock down your computer. You need to call the Microsoft hotline. And then what was relayed to me, because this is the first time I've ever heard of it, is the teenage girl that called. They started asking questions. They started asking for account numbers and Social Security. And luckily enough, she said, something's not right. And before she gave over any personal identifiable information, she stopped.
Good. I'm glad.
But I got to think that there's a ton of people that don't stop.
That is correct. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's just because it's your own computer, but people just feel like it must be legitimate. If it pops up on your computer, like there must be something real to it, and it's not. So a lot of times people will call that number on there and they will identify themselves Microsoft or some company, and they'll say that there's a virus on your computer and you have to get it fixed. And what they'll do is they'll ask the victim to download some software which will give the scammers access to their computer, and they will let them actually into their computer. And once they get in, it's not easy to get them out.
Nope.
And they will have access to the banking information. They can get your keystroke information.
Yep.
And it just really, 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 it's devastating to some people. I just had a victim that lost $2 million in a scam like this. Yes.
So what can we do if something does pop up on the computer? What do you recommend to the community that they do?
So first of all, I would ignore it.
Okay.
And if you are truly concerned that there's some kind of malware on your computer, I personally would take my computer to a computer store and take it and ask somebody to physically look at it, as opposed to calling a number. We're just not exactly sure if it's a scammer. And you never want to give anyone access to your computer. I mean, with work, it's one thing when it's your IT and you know it's your IT people.
Right.
But at your at-home computer, that's a different story. It's just, there's so many scammers out there. You really just have to take those extra steps to be careful, and or get a legitimate, somebody that you're comfortable with, that you've used before, a company. Then use that same company again.
Awesome.
Man. Well, all of it goes to ignore these things. Ignore the text message that says you sound like a nice. I got that one one time. I answered one of those. Sorry, wrong number. Well, you sound really nice.
Right.
I'm not that nice. But ignore them. But they're playing on all bunch of the human psyche.
Element. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That of either wanting the Ralph Cramden like get rich quick scheme, right?
Right.
Or they just want to be nice, and they fall into these traps, unfortunately, which again are being run by individuals or organized crime.
Right.
Like,
right.
The one thing I do want to dispel, because again we have it through our experience, but a lot of people just assume, oh, it's all these elderly people that they're just falling for these scams. We've already talked about middle-aged people, wealthy people,
College kids.
college kids,
kids.
doctors,
Yep.
lawyers. I would bet there's probably a cop or two out there that got taken at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it can happen to anyone, and that's how nefarious these things are.
They are. And you really just have to, again, stop and think about it and ask. Do an internet search. Just do an extra step. Especially do not ever give your money away to anyone you don't know. I mean, I don't care who they say they are. It's probably going to be a scam.
This is like $1 billion industry, right?
Billions.
Billions. Okay.
Yeah.
And how shameful is it that we call it an industry, right? But that's what it's become.
It is. And, you know, again, back to the internet, I mean, the world is so big yet so small with the internet. And you can be sitting here in America and communicating with somebody overseas, and you have no idea. You really don't, who you're communicating with.
Well, I'm excited we got to talk to you, and I'm
Absolutely.
Cassandra set this up. So
Yeah, we have a ton of more information. You know, if we can, if you want to continue and segue to other things, then that would be fantastic. But there's unfortunately a lot of financial crimes out there, and it's just the best thing you can do is education and protect yourself that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here with us.
Absolutely.
I look forward to bringing you on to provide further education to our community.
Okay.
So thank you very much. We ask that you join us next time. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Montgomery County 911, what's the address of the emergency?